Just wanted to point out in the DoD memo, there is a sentence, and recognizes the potential risks regarding DoD's national security responsibilities. I'd like to put in the record an article from the National Observer in Canada. Headline, inspectors say major Canadian airline disaster likely, and they talk about the major cutbacks in the safety which was retained by the government. And then I would move on, Ms. Robine. Do you remember Executive Order 13180 by President Clinton? No? Okay.
Is that the one that created the ATO?
The one that says air traffic control is an inherently governmental function.
Yes, the date of that is December 7th.
Thank you, Ms. Robine. I don't have time. Ms. Robine, I don't have time. Thank you. So, Mr. Scoville, hold that up. Come on. Okay, so we just kind of said, oh, our assets are old, and someone down there said they're not worth anything. How old's that? I think that's 13, right? That is Houston, valued at $62 million. Then, of course, we have property in Long Island, kind of valuable. I mean, have you broken out the assets in terms of property values? In Canada, they valued the system and they had to pay for it, correct?
They did.
Okay. And the Inspector General in Canada, Auditor General, said they paid, this is Canada, little dinky Canada, they paid $1.5 billion, and we're proposing that nothing would be paid here and there's no value. And they said it was undervalued at 2.6. How old was their system? Because you're saying, our system's old and decrepit, and these guys say it's not worth anything. Was theirs brand new, spiffy back then?
No.
Okay. So they paid for it, but here we have a much larger investment that we're going to transfer for free, and of course we have the whole problematic thing about takings. Now, and you valued it at $13.7 billion. Let's say, how much of that would you depreciate?
How much of that would depreciate it?
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's what's land value versus building, you don't know.
That's the infrastructure alone. I don't believe it involves the property value.
Okay, okay. So it's quite valuable. Now let's go to small airports. Almost everybody on that side is sensitive to GA. They represent more rural districts. And we heard that they will not direct where people fly. That's correct. But this board will decide where we invest. Here's the statement of the CEO of JetBlue. We also need to direct infrastructure improvements into the regions of the country where they'll produce the most benefits, like the Northeast Corridor. The airlines get 4 seats on that board. That's the opinion of JetBlue. We heard the same thing from the former CEO of United. And oh, by the way, there's no airport representative on the board whatsoever, at least as the bill was written last year. So we're going to say we're going to protect rural interests. We're going to pretend it. Now, Mr. Brown, you talked about WASP. There are 4,421 WASPs. Did those come for free? And do they have to be maintained, updated?
Well, the FAA, like night elves, produced them one airport at a time until they arrived on my doorstep, and I was amazed by them, but they got paid for by the user fees and fuel taxes that fuel the system.
Yeah, we've heard how much money has been wasted, except we've been investing in things like that which aren't valuable to the commercial industry. Except for maybe Jackson Hole and a couple other places, does the commercial industry use those?
Anybody can use those if they have the right equipment. The problem is most of the airlines don't have the right equipment.
Well, that's interesting. So anybody know of another country in the world that is ready to turn on a ground-based ADS-B system in 2020 for all their air traffic? Anybody who's so equipped? Any other country in the world doing that? Ground-based domestically, not over the ocean.
Australia. It's already in operation.
Okay, so we got one, and we're going to be there too. So, we've heard a lot about this over-the-ocean stuff. I'm not particularly concerned about the tiny fraction of over-the-ocean flights we control and whether or not they get free ADS-B, because there aren't that many planes to worry about the congestion and flying closer together. Whereas domestically, we may get some benefit from the system, but it still begs the question of how many planes can you land at the same time at many of our airports, which has to do with airport scheduling. Revenues. Apparently, there's an assumption that Congress will repeal the ticket tax. And I mean, right now, our current taxes are yielding about $14 billion a year. And the ATO is 11.1. So that assumes Congress is going to repeal substantial taxes, I assume. That's correct. And then the new board will determine how to pay for the ATO. Okay. I see a nodding of the head, yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I thank the gentleman, and let me start off first by saying that